In 2020, a team of archaeologists entered a rainforest valley in Borneo and climbed toward a cave that seemed ordinary until the floor revealed something impossible. Beneath the limestone darkness of Liang Tibo Cave, they found a young person's skeleton, buried for thousands of years beneath soil, silence, roots, and forgotten time. At first, the bones looked like another rare discovery from the deep past, but one detail changed everything the researchers thought they were seeing. The lower part of the left leg was missing, not broken by animals, not destroyed after death, and not lost through ordinary decay underground. The bone had been cut cleanly at an angle with a sharp tool, and then something even more shocking had happened afterward. The wound had healed, the bone had sealed. New growth had formed smoothly, proving this person survived long after the leg was removed. That single detail turned an ancient skeleton into one of the most astonishing medical mysteries ever found in prehistoric archaeology. Because this was not a modern surgery, not an ancient city hospital, and not a procedure done with metal tools. This happened at least 31,000 years ago in a tropical rainforest, among people with no writing, no antibiotics, and no operating room. So the question is not only how someone cut off a leg and avoided immediate death from bleeding, the deeper question is how an entire Stone Age community kept that person alive for years afterward. Who looked at a wounded child in a dangerous rainforest and decided not to abandon them to hunger, infection, or predators? And what did those people know about bodies, wounds, plants, pain, and survival that we have underestimated for so long? To understand why this discovery is so powerful, we need to forget the comfortable world we live in today. For most of human history, survival depended on movement, strength, cooperation, and the ability to keep walking when the landscape demanded it. Hunter-gatherer groups moved across huge territories, following animals, seasonal plants, rivers, weather, and the invisible rhythm of survival itself. There were no stored crops waiting safely in a building, no roads, no doctors, and no rescue coming from outside. If you could not walk, you could not hunt, gather, carry water, follow the group, or escape when danger appeared. A broken leg today is frightening, but in the ancient world, it could remove you from the entire survival system. The group now had to make a terrible calculation. Spend food, time, and strength on someone who could not contribute. And in a world where one failed hunt could leave everyone hungry, that decision was not simple kindness, it was costly. But the danger did not end with hunger, because the prehistoric world punished anyone who stayed still for too long. Cave lions, hyenas, bears, wolves, and other predators understood weakness better than any human could explain it. An injured person lying near camp was vulnerable, and someone had to guard them through long days and terrifying nights. Then came the most invisible enemy of all, infection, entering the body through torn skin. Before humans understood bacteria, an open wound could become a silent death sentence within hours or days. If infection spread into the bone and then into the bloodstream, the whole body could collapse into fever, weakness, and sepsis. Even today, with antibiotics and intensive care, severe infection is dangerous. 30,000 years ago, it was often final. A major fracture also caused hidden damage many people never imagine, because broken bones do not simply sit quietly inside the body. Muscles around the break can spasm violently, pulling the bone ends past each other and tearing nearby tissues from within. A badly broken thigh bone can bleed heavily into surrounding muscle, weakening the body before infection even begins. So when archaeologists find a healed ancient bone, they are not just seeing biology, they are seeing survival against stacked odds. The body can repair bone, but only if several impossible conditions happen at the same time. The wound must avoid deadly infection, the person must receive enough food, and the broken structure must stay still. Bone is not dead stone. It is living tissue, filled with blood vessels, active cells, and constant rebuilding. When bone breaks, blood first gathers around the injury, forming a clot that becomes the foundation for repair. Then the body builds a soft bridge of cartilage between the broken ends, fragile at first, but full of possibility. Over the following months, that cartilage is slowly replaced by harder bone, creating a rough callus around the fracture. If the person survives long enough, the bone remodels, reshapes, and may eventually hide much of the original damage. But there is one condition the body cannot solve alone. The broken ends must stay nearly motionless. If the limb keeps moving, the delicate bridge tears apart, healing resets, and the bone may never join correctly. That is why one of the greatest medical inventions in human history was also one of the simplest, the splint. Ancient people did not need steel, plastic, or fiberglass to understand that a broken limb needed external support. They had straight sticks, curved bark, animal hide, grass padding, leather strips, and tendons strong enough to bind everything tightly. What matters is not that the materials were simple. What matters is that the logic was brilliant. Someone realized that holding the limb still gave the hidden healing process enough time to complete itself. Those ancient healers could not see cartilage forming or minerals hardening inside the bone, but they saw outcomes. When a limb stayed still, people sometimes lived. When it moved too much, they suffered or died. That observation, repeated through generations, became knowledge before anyone invented writing, schools, hospitals, or formal anatomy. And the people of Liang Tibo did not merely splint a fracture, they performed something far more extreme. They removed part of a leg, controlled the bleeding, protected the wound, and somehow prevented infection in a rainforest environment. That matters because tropical rainforests are rich with microbes, heat, humidity, insects, and everything that makes open wounds dangerous. If the operation had been careless, the patient would have died from blood loss within minutes or infection within days. Instead, the bone healed cleanly, and the person lived for years after the surgical removal of the limb. This was not lucky survival after a random injury. It was intentional care after a deliberate medical act. The skeleton becomes more than a body. It becomes evidence of skill, planning, patience, and community protection. But Borneo is not the only place where ancient bones reveal a more compassionate human past. At Shanidar Cave in northern Iraq, archaeologists discovered a Neanderthal man whose body carried a lifetime of serious injuries. He had suffered damage to the head, probably lost vision in one eye, and had major weakness on one side. His arm was badly wasted or missing, his walking was impaired, and later evidence suggests he may have had severe hearing loss. By strict survival logic, he should not have lived long in a world of predators, cold, injury, and constant movement. Yet he survived into older age for his time, which means others must have helped him for years. They fed him when he could not hunt, protected him when he could not escape, and included him despite disability. His bones quietly destroy the idea that Neanderthals were only brutal, simple creatures without lasting social care. Other remains from Shanidar and different ancient sites show puncture wounds, healed fractures, lost teeth, arthritis, and survival after serious trauma. Again and again, the same pattern appears across time: injury, healing, survival, and the invisible presence of caregivers. In Georgia, a much older human ancestor survived for years after losing all their teeth, an astonishing detail. Without teeth, chewing tough food would have been nearly impossible, so someone likely helped provide softer food. That skull is almost 2 million years old, and it suggests care may reach far deeper than Homo sapiens alone. The message repeated by these bones is simple but powerful. Someone was helping when nature would not. This is where our picture of ancient people begins to change, from savage survival to intelligent cooperation. Hunter-gatherers were not doctors in the modern sense, but they lived in constant contact with anatomy and injury. After killing large animals, they butchered bodies, opened joints, separated muscles, cut tendons, and learned where blood vessels and organs lay. A modern surgeon studies anatomy in books and laboratories. Ancient hunters studied anatomy with stone tools and survival pressure. They saw how limbs worked, how joints moved, what tissue looked like inside, and how bodies failed after injury. They also watched members of their own group suffer wounds, recover, worsen, or die, and they remembered the patterns. This was not formal science, but it was observation, testing, memory, and practical knowledge refined by consequences. A wrong lesson could kill someone. A useful lesson could be passed down because it saved a life. That is how prehistoric medicine probably grew, not through theory, but through thousands of painful examples. Ancient healers also had access to materials that were far more useful than many people realize today. Fresh animal hide, when wet, can be wrapped around a limb and shaped closely to the injured body. As it dries, rawhide shrinks, tightens, hardens, and becomes almost rigid around the shape it holds. That makes it functionally similar to an early cast, holding the bone stable from every direction. The material was not modern plaster, but the principle was the same. surround the injury, and prevent motion. This means an ancient healer using wet hide around a fracture was following logic still used in hospitals today. Splints and casts solved the problem of movement, but wounds still had to be protected from infection. Here, ancient people used the natural pharmacy around them, and some treatments were surprisingly effective. Honey was likely one of the most valuable wound treatments in the ancient world because it fights bacteria in several ways. Its thick texture covers tissue, its sugar pulls water from bacteria, and its chemistry can create hostile conditions for infection. Later, Egyptian medical texts describe honey placed directly on wounds, but the practice may be far older than Egypt. Tree resins also helped, especially sticky substances like pine pitch that sealed wounds against dirt, water, and contamination. Many resins contain compounds with antimicrobial properties, and their waterproof layer could protect fragile tissue beneath. Willow bark offered another powerful tool because it contains salicin, a natural compound related to modern aspirin. Plants such as yarrow and chamomile appear in ancient medical traditions because they can reduce inflammation and pain. Not every plant treatment worked, and many ancient patients surely died despite every effort made for them. But the ancient medicine cabinet was not empty. It contained real tools discovered through long observation. Still, no plant, splint, or careful surgery could replace the hardest requirement of all: sustained human care. Healing a major injury takes energy, protein, fat, minerals, water, warmth, sleep, protection, and time. An injured person needs food while being unable to gather it, and protection while being unable to escape. That means every healed prehistoric fracture is not only a medical event, it is a social decision. A group chose to give limited resources to someone who could not repay them immediately through work. They chose to carry water, share meat, watch through the night, and protect a body that could not move. That choice had to be made not once, but again and again through weeks, months, or years. This is why healed bones are among the most emotional artifacts ever found beneath the ground. They show that care existed where no written law demanded it and no institution organized it. The person from Liang Thibault survived because the operation was successful, but also because the days afterward were successful. Someone cleaned the wound, someone brought food, someone watched for fever, someone helped the person move after healing. Every small act extended life a little longer, until years passed beyond what should have been possible. That is the part of the story hidden behind the dramatic word surgery. The cutting was only one moment, but the survival afterward was a long chain of patient devotion. Without that chain, the healed bone would never exist, and archaeologists would never have found this story. Intentional surgery appears again in another terrifying ancient practice: trepanation, the deliberate opening of holes in the skull. Skulls from different regions of the world show scraping, drilling, cutting, and most importantly, healing around the openings. Healing proves the person survived, which means these were not only attacks or accidents after death. Some ancient communities may have used trepanation for head injuries, pressure, pain, ritual purposes, or misunderstood illness. Whatever the reason, survival after skull surgery required technique, restraint, and serious post-operative care. In some ancient populations, survival rates appear surprisingly high, showing this was not random stabbing or reckless violence. By the time Egyptian medical texts were written, knowledge of fractures, wounds, examination, splinting, and triage was already organized. Those texts did not appear from nowhere. They were the visible surface of a much older river of knowledge. Behind every written medical instruction were generations of unnamed healers who learned from bodies, pain, mistakes, and survival. Scientists know these stories because bones preserve traces of healing in ways the trained eye can read. A healed fracture often leaves a callus, a thickened area where new bone formed around the injury. Microscopes show whether that bone is fresh and disorganized or old and remodeled into stronger structure. CT scans reveal hidden internal scars, old infection signs, bone alignment, and injuries invisible from the outside. In the Borneo skeleton, the missing leg showed smooth living regrowth that could not happen after death. The cut angle looked deliberate, not like animal gnawing, erosion, or accidental breakage underground. There was no obvious infection in the healed tissue, which makes the survival even more astonishing. The skeleton is therefore not just a skeleton, it is a medical record written in bone. One detail makes the record even more incomplete than we might think. Children's bones can hide their own injuries. Because children grow, Their bones heal faster, remodel more completely, and may erase old fracture evidence over time. That means many ancient childhood injuries may have disappeared from the archaeological record entirely. The injuries we find may be only the visible fraction of care that once happened. So prehistoric communities may have treated far more wounds, fractures, and childhood accidents than we will ever know. Modern medicine feels completely different, with titanium rods, sterile rooms, antibiotics, imaging machines, and trained specialists. Yet the core rules of bone healing remain almost unchanged from the ancient world. Align the bone, keep it still, prevent infection, feed the body, protect the patient, and wait. An ancient healer using bark, hide, honey, and memory was answering the same biological demands as a modern surgeon. The tools changed dramatically, but the broken body still asks for the same basic things. That creates a haunting bridge between a modern emergency room and a cave beside a rainforest river. Different language, different materials, different knowledge, but the same desire to hold life together when the body breaks. Some anthropologists have said a healed femur is evidence of civilization, and the idea is unforgettable. In the wild, an animal with a broken thigh bone usually dies before the bone can mend. It cannot hunt, flee, defend itself, or reach water during the long recovery. A healed human femur means someone fed the injured, protected them, and stayed through their weakness. It means the group accepted a burden because one person's life still mattered. Maybe civilization did not begin with cities, walls, kings, temples, or writing carved into stone. Maybe it began when an injured person fell, and others decided they would not leave them behind. Picture that recovery 30,000 years ago. A fall, a scream, a twisted limb, and sudden fear around the camp. There is no hospital light, no ambulance, no metal surgical table, and no painkiller strong enough to erase terror. There are only hands, memory, bark, hide, firelight, plants, pressure against bleeding, and voices trying to keep someone calm. Then come the weeks when nothing dramatic happens, but everything important is being decided. The patient lies still while the bone quietly builds its hidden bridge, too fragile to see. Someone brings water, someone shares meat, someone cleans the wound, someone checks for fever and swelling. Outside, the group still must hunt, gather, move, avoid predators, and survive bad weather. Yet every day they spend energy on someone who cannot give much back at that moment. This is not weakness. This is one of the deepest strengths of the human line. We survive not only because we made tools, but because we turned groups into protection. A single injured body could borrow the strength of many bodies until healing became possible. That idea may be older than agriculture, older than writing, and possibly older than our species itself. The Liang Thibault skeleton reminds us that medicine did not begin with white coats or glass bottles. It began when humans learned that pain could be answered with skill, memory, and responsibility. It began when someone looked at a wound and tried to stop death from taking another person. It began when a group refused to measure life only by immediate usefulness. The oldest surgery we know is not only a story about cutting bone with a sharp tool. It is a story about nearly a decade of continued care after the dramatic moment ended. The healed leg stump says someone survived, but it also says someone stayed close long enough. That is why this discovery changes how we imagine prehistoric people in the darkness of deep time. They were hunters, yes. They were toolmakers, yes. They faced hunger, predators, and constant danger. But they were also watchers of wounds, carriers of the weak, keepers of memory, and builders of care. They knew fear and pain, but they also knew the terrible importance of not giving up too soon. In one rainforest cave, 31,000 years ago, a community performed a surgery that should have been impossible. Then they did something even harder. They kept the patient alive afterward, day after day. No monument marks their names, no text records their instructions, no voice from that cave reaches us directly. But the bone remains, sealed and healed, carrying their decision across 31,000 years. It tells us that humanity was not born only from violence, hunting, or clever tools. It was also born from the choice to protect the wounded when survival would have been easier without them. And maybe that is the most powerful lesson hidden beneath the cave floor in Borneo. Long before hospitals existed, humanity itself became the hospital, the medicine, and the reason healing could begin. A healed bone is never only bone. It is food, time, protection, knowledge, patience, and love made visible. It is proof that someone mattered enough to be carried through pain when nature offered no mercy. It is proof that ancient people looked at suffering and answered with action, not abandonment. 31,000 years later, that young person's bones still ask us to reconsider what made humans truly human. Not only the spear, not only the fire, not only the stone blade cutting through flesh, but the hands that held the broken still long enough for life to return,